I think Diablo 4 is focused on audience retention right now. Let me break down how. Watch this video, and by the end of it, you'll understand my point. The last patch from Diablo 4 had this in it. Gameplay updates. Total experience bonus from Urn of Aggression Seasonal Blessing has been increased from 8 to 20%. That, and of course, a good amount of bug fixes. This was the entirety of the 1.14 build. But they also recently, within the last 24 hours, just posted what they call a hotfix, which isn't really a hotfix. However, it is more of just kind of additional patch notes. And what these patch notes say is one thing in particular, which experience gains for killing monsters has been increased in World Tier 3 and 4. World Tier 3 experience gained by 5%. World Tier 4 experience gained by 15%. Now, this made me head scratch for just a moment, because what this looks like to me is not really a buff to experience, but a revert to the beginning of the season. Now, if you remember this patch, 1.1a, this is the launch of the season patch here, new unique items, legendary aspects, etc. And if you scroll down far enough, you're going to see we are adjusting bonus experience rewards for killing monsters that are higher level than the player. And you can see the developer's notes. We have observed that experience bonus rewarded for killing higher level monsters escalates too fast when compared to the relative challenge involved. We still want to reward players for taking on this challenge by encouraging them to participate in power leveling together instead of one player killing enemies while another member of their party waits at the dungeon entrance. So this right here, we effectively had a nerf to experience from 1 level higher to 3 level higher, 25%, to 10 levels higher at 15%. So 15% basically experience instead of 25, and that's if you're fighting things higher level. Effectively, this is a nerf for all players in terms of experience. We already know this. This is another patch. But then if we add in the previous update here with the bonus experience from 8 to 20%, and then if we actually look at the bonuses we're getting, which is gains increased by 15%, we're right back into the experience that basically we had at the beginning of the season. So I was trying to understand why they would do this. Like, why would you nerf the experience in the beginning, but then buff the experience later on in the season? Like, that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And still I started actually focusing on what it is they were buffing and nerfing. For instance, one of the nerfs that has not been changed at all is the fact that monsters that are over leveled than you, for instance, if you are level 1, it used to be the level 100 monster mobs would give you full level 100 experience. But now it's only level 11 would be the total level of experience you would get. Effectively, you can only get experience up to 10 levels higher of a mob than your character currently is. Now, while experience has been buffed, it doesn't, they didn't change or account for any of these type of situations for power leveling. Then I was looking at the patch notes and realized the total experience bonus from Urns of Aggression is also a mechanic that requires you to do some leveling already. It's a later stage experience mechanic that more activates and will get the benefits of the buff if you have already played the game for a little while this season in order to unlock these seasonal buffs. Basically, you don't get them right away at the beginning. Then I looked at the experience buffs that we had in the recent hotfix. If you look at this here, World Tier 3, World Tier 4. These are, again, not immediate. These happen after you unlock the World Tiers, which, depending upon your playstyle and how strong your character is, could be, 50s and 60s, or it could be 60s and like 80s, but most people unlock it earlier. So effectively, these experience buffs, from what I can tell, only happen on the back half of the character. So the logic I came to was this is an audience retention play by Blizzard. Effectively, somebody over there probably realized that what happens is you have your player count here on the left, you have your level here, okay? So as people has started playing the game, they're downloading the game and playing the game more and more and more, there's players, and at some point we had, the cap of the players, right? Now the levels are continuing at what level people are, right about to here. People are enjoying the game and everything's going good. The audience retention's fine. Then people hit a wall right about here, in which it's about level 70, approximately, okay? Right around World Tier 3, World Tier 4, we start to see the players finish off the bell curve. It starts to drop off right about until we get to like level 100. Barely anybody actually plays to level 100 right about here. However, this portion, especially to 50, okay, right about here to 50, this is a rock solid graph in my opinion. I actually think a lot of people Enjoy the 1 to 50. I think when you start Diablo, it is very engaging. It's a good game to play through the campaign right until you get to World Tier 3. All of that, the excitement is decent. I actually still think that. I actually think the game is pretty decent in the start. So what they do with these buffs and experience changes is somebody over there figured out that what we should do is increase the length of the time that people are playing, effectively the 1 to 50. Let's nerf the experience to artificially move this level 50 bar to here instead. So we get this extra portion of time that it's going to take people to go from 1 to 50 as audience retention. People will stay in the game longer for this part, which effectively moves this whole graph down a little bit. So that way, by the time they hit 70 or 80, they've been in the game longer and maybe they're more committed to the game. And then what they do is they have another play where, hey, people are dropping off really fast here. What if we shrink the level 100 and move it closer to the level 70 so that maybe it's right about here. So we can save this amount of player drop off. People will get to level 100 faster. Effectively, to break this down in another way to explain it, they lengthen the part of the game that they think people are still playing and staying in, and then they decreased the length of the game for the portion that people are quitting in. Which makes perfect sense as to why they would look at audience retention metrics and see people are dropping off at this portion and people are staying longer at this portion. So let's increase this portion that they're staying longer and shorten the portion in which they leave. They're probably trying to get these experience numbers just right, like Goldilocks, right before Season 2 comes out, which would make sense to me. And they're probably especially trying to get the in-game leveling system right because Season 2 is supposed to add more in-game. It's supposed to have more of the content that we've all been asking for and craving. Things to do at the later levels. They're probably trying to shrink that drop-off at the end, which is fairly significant, as much as they can. And they can do that by making the leveling easier. They can do that by adding more bosses. They can do that by increasing itemization. They can effectively do that by adding more things to do while requiring less time to do them, which is, I think, what they're lining up their shot for. It's the only thing that makes sense. In my time when I was looking at the experience and trying to figure out why would they nerf it and then buff it unless they, without saying like, oh, we made a mistake, you know, like we think the experience should be more. They didn't say anything like that. They just tweaked very certain numbers. And originally my take was, okay, well, they hate power leveling. Like maybe that's what it is. Maybe they just absolutely hate power leveling because some of the nerfs were never reverted, but they added experience back for things. So why would they add experience in World Tier 3 and 4 buff? Kitty cat! Why would they add experience in World Tier 3 and 4, but leave the nerf to over-leveled monsters? So originally my take was, oh, well, that's to cancel out power leveling. But if you realize it, I think it's both. I think they don't like power leveling because it messes with this audience retention metric. For instance, if the strategy is when you get into the game, is just find somebody to power level you from 1 to 50, then you're rushing through the part of the game that Blizzard has the data that shows people stay the longest in this game. So they're not going to want people to rush all the way past the part of the game that people stay the longest in the game, which is the early levels. And they sure don't want you to rush to the end game where people drop off the fastest. So if you think about our power leveling is sort of the big enemy of Blizzard. It skips the part of the game that people stay and it puts you right into the part of the game that people don't like and are leaving because of. So upon looking upon all the numbers here, seeing the patch notes, looking back at the previous patch notes where they nerfed things like level 100 monster experience for level 1s, etc., that is the answer I've come to. They don't want power leveling, and they want to keep audience retention high by pushing people through the parts of the game that seem to maintain the player count as much as possible, which would make sense in a time where player count has been diving. They're focused on retaining as much as they can, so audience retention would make sense for a metric to be the focus. That's it for today. Love you all. I will be live now, which you can get in the pinned comment as well as the description, and I'll see you for the next Diablo 4 video.